Well, I have seen many places, particularly in the West, where you find nature at its best in spite of industrialization. And the immediate place I can think of is the Alps mountains, both in Austria and in Switzerland. It's a manicured kind of place in the sense that every grass there gets attention. But of course, what attracted me most to that, this very fact, good of humanity in spite of the heavy industrialization in these countries. The Niagara Falls, it has all the attraction that you can think of in the sense of history, in the sense of geography, because it straddles two countries and it has all kinds of facilities for entertainment. History is very much predominant there. Adventure is very much there. So if you ask me to pick up one tourist spot which has all these, together with first-class facilities, I would point out to the Niagara Falls. Well, I was born and brought up in a village near Kayankulam, and the most nostalgic thought about is the paddy fields there. We literally grew in the paddy fields, whether it is a dry season when we flew kites or whether it is a wet season when we were swimming in that dirty water. Both these are exciting adventures as a boy. We used to walk through the fields, we had to balance ourselves on these narrow bunds which divided and without, of course, any footwear. If you slip, you will be into the water. Today, when I go back there, I find none of it. It is all construction. And even my own paddy fields, which we sold away, have now at least 15-20 bungalows with iron and mortar. I think loss of the paddy fields is probably the biggest disaster that has taken place in Kerala. Everybody is attracted by the spring, but I am even attracted more by the rainy season. I don't see a greater joy than sitting outside and watching the rain go. And it is life itself. And I'm a golf player. Water on the golf course is the most exciting thing, because unless there is water, unless there is green grass, you cannot play golf. Golf is a very nature-friendly game. All said and done, I think the golf courses provide a kind of lung to the city. Well, I was not very conscious of need for protection of environment because one took it for granted when we were young. I think the turning point in my life was the 1972 Stockholm Conference on Environment and Development. Of course, it was a professional interest initially, because you may remember that Mrs. Gandhi was the only head of state who went to the Stockholm Conference in 1972. In 92 in Rio, about 100 heads of state went. So those 20 years were dramatic in world consciousness about the environment and its impact on development. Mrs. Gandhi talked about poverty is the worst polluter, concepts like that, and the polluters must pay. Later I became the Government of India's senior most environment negotiator for several years. From that point onwards, I started noticing the damage which is being brought about as well as the solutions for it. Since then, I've been conscious of the need for restricted use of resources and preservation. It is inevitable that when you have development, there will be a certain amount of destruction of nature. If you are destroying paddy fields, you must create paddy fields elsewhere. When you are building a factory somewhere, matching area should be preserved for mankind. During the Industrial Revolution, nobody did that. Now people are aware of it, and there is need for environmental regulations, environmental controls, environmental clearances, etc. Technology is available for environment-friendly industries, but we don't do that. I think there is a visible deterioration of the environmental atmosphere today. You can see that there is a consistent and continuous destruction of nature. Global warming issue and the emission of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. Development means, in any developing country, needs to emit greenhouse gases. There is no escape from it. Developed countries also emit much greenhouse gases, what the developing countries emit, and we call them the survival emissions. So there is a need for the developed world to reduce emissions, definitely. For that, they need to change their lifestyles. Developing countries must restrict themselves, and therefore the developed countries are willing to give the developing countries technology and resources, finances, in order to adopt more and more environment-friendly technology. But now the crisis is that the developed countries are refusing to reduce their emissions. Now the consensus is basically that everybody will cooperate together so that the global temperature does not increase more than 2 degrees Celsius. Trivandrum, I think, waste disposal, pressing issue. What we had was a place where we used to just dump these. And that created a huge problems for the people there because it was not processed adequately. I have lived in countries where the waste is a blessing rather than a curse. I often think of the city of Vienna, for example. The most beautiful place in Vienna is the place where they dispose of waste. It was created by their best artist, someone called Hundert Wasser. Waste is collected and separated at the source itself. Every house outside you will find different colored bins into which you can dump what you want. This processing center provides power and heat for the entire city. And I think Trivandrum is not so huge a place to unable to do this issue. So it should be done. I hope that is very important for Trivandrum, which has been a clean city in the past, but today it is really pathetic. I think the worst I have seen is in the colonies outside Delhi. Several colonies have sprouted all over Delhi, and perhaps that is where you find pollution at its worst. If you enter somebody's house, inside is Italian marble and fantastic fittings and everything. But at least 20 dogs you have to jump over in order to go to their houses, and nobody seems to care what exactly happens outside. They keep their homes very neatly, but outside it is horrible. Delhi probably is the most polluted place I have seen. Consciousness, awareness. We are not aware, I think. There are many people who still believe that there is nothing called global warming. There are some people who still believe that Earth is flat. So people think somehow we have the feeling that everything will be all right. God is in His heaven and all is well with the world. That is the theory. After all, God created this earth, so He should take care of it. And so we don't need to worry very much about it. Conservation starts at home, and cleanliness starts at home, orderliness starts at home. And unless we practice all that and teach our children how to be conscious of environment preservation, I don't think we can do very much. The governments can do very little. So very small measures by individuals can grow into huge projects.